Hey guys, welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast post-game show. Hope you guys are having a great Wednesday evening. Man, what a game. So the Pistons took on the reigning champions, the Boston Celtics tonight. A couple of injuries to point out for people that didn't get to watch this game live, or if you're listening on the audio side later. There was no Dennis Schroeder. He had an ankle injury. He was questionable throughout the day. Obviously, didn't play. Simone Fontecchio missed his second straight game with another injury. Jaylen Brown for the Celtics did not play, but those were the most of the players that didn't play. There's a list for the Celtics that um, didn't play. Just wanted to kind of put that out there before we kind of jump into this post game podcast. If you're new here, what we do is we break down the quarters, and then after I'm done breaking down the quarters, what we will do is we open up the show for people that are watching live on YouTube. It's a Q&A. It could be statements. It can be just overall questions about the Detroit Pistons or about the NBA for that matter. But let's get into this post-game podcast. So the one thing that I was really excited with this game leading up to it was the the storylines and the just kind of the narratives that were, kind of getting pushed out. The Celtics have had our number for quite some time. They've been just a team that usually gives us a lot of trouble. Now, granted, they didn't have their second best player out there in Jaylen Brown, but Jason Tatum was still out there. And the storyline was Celtics were, I believe, on a 6-game winning streak. Pistons were on a 7-game winning streak. And if they had won tonight, which they did, it would set a franchise record, like the most wins since the 2008 season. And just the storylines heading into this game, I really felt like, man, like I wanted this to be a nationally televised game. I understand that the TV schedule is set before the season, but man, you have two of the hottest teams in the Eastern Conference right now going head to head, and couldn't even make it past, uh, like a local, TV setting with Boston, and then with the Detroit Pistons being on FanDuel. But maybe the Pistons will get more ESPN games if they keep winning the way they're winning. Maybe some teams will get flexed because the Pistons are just playing unbelievable ball right now. But they got up to a great start. And I was really impressed and happy with the start they got out to. It was like an 8-0 start right off the gate. Celtics looked very, very sluggish for a majority of this game outside of the second quarter. The Pistons just really, really pushed the pace. There was foul trouble with Kristaps Porzingis, which I thought helped. He got 2 quick fouls in the first quarter. And Kate Cunningham and JB Bickerstaff really got on Ed Malloy's ass, because in the first quarter there were multiple blown calls, and he was the referee that had just a clear view of these missed calls. JB and Cade, got in his ear and let him know. And this was a stretch in which Jason Tatum looked like he was going to go for 50 at one point because he just couldn't miss. And Pistons call a timeout. I think what JB's adjustment was is, hey, Asar, take on Tatum. It's your assignment. And Asar had this man just in a blender at times, forced multiple deflections, shot clock violations. Even though Tatum had over 20 points tonight, he really had to work very hard for those 20 points. And Asar just did a phenomenal job. I feel like his imprint on this victory shouldn't go unnoticed. Defensively, I thought he really set the tone for the rest of the squad and the rest of the group. So you got to give us our Thompson big kudos for this victory over the Celtics tonight. Malik Beasley, as usual, just being the flamethrower off the bench, just came in late in the first and just brought so much energy. And the Pistons end the first quarter on an 11-0 run, and they had a 9-point lead to end the first quarter. They had 29 to Boston's 20. Heading into the second quarter, you had Beasley and Marcus Sasser, believe it or not. He got some clock. I think JB really likes Marcus Sasser going up against Peyton Pritchard because for a majority of the season, Sasser has been in and out of the rotation. But, Sasser gave the Pistons some good minutes tonight, hit some threes. And, defensively, I thought he really showed effort and toughness. And I think Sasser likes the challenge of, guarding a guy like a Peyton Pritchard and just kind of getting in his grill. So you got to give, Marcus Sasser some love tonight with this victory as well. In the second quarter, though, the Celtics really surged back with the perimeter shooting. I thought the second quarter was probably the Pistons' worst quarter, just in terms of just perimeter defense, because the Celtics were damn near wide open. It seemed like for every three, and they made 11 threes just in the second quarter alone. Um, and they end up getting a tie score heading into halftime, 55 apiece for both teams. Coming out of halftime, this team came out as the aggressors. Asar, stepped up that defense. Jalen Duren's energy around the basket, and you could just tell this team just wanted it more. Yes, the Celtics were on a back-to-back. Pistons have played what, 3 games in the last 5 nights. Both of these teams are banged up. They had injuries. They both have played a lot of basketball games as of late, but you could just tell this was going to be a game where the Pistons just completely, put their foot on the gas and take over, and the home crowd absolutely loved it. They end the third quarter with a lead of 90-79. Heading into the fourth, you could just kind of tell Celtics were going to try to make one last surge, and Malik Beasley just came out in the fourth quarter with defensive intensity, energy, hit multiple threes. Ron Holland scored around the basket. His energy was felt as well in this game, and the Pistons, padded their lead to kind of get the Celtics to basically um, wave the white flag a little bit. They put their G League and deep bench guys in around the 5 minute mark. And they're just like, you know what? It's not our night. We're not gonna, keep trying to come back and claw into this game. There was an Asar Thompson injury. Now, this was a very scary injury, and I'm sure we'll probably talk about it in the post game podcast when we open up the show to questions and answers. But um, initially, I got really nervous because I was like, please do not be an ACL tear. Please. Uh I felt like that was Asar's like best game of the season so far, just defensively. But thank God he got up on his own willpower, walked to the bench, got looked at by the medical staff, went to the back of the locker room. The broadcast said that it was just a cramp. Thank goodness, because I don't know if this team could sustain another season-ending injury, and still keep the pace up, just the way they're playing basketball right now. I feel like Asar is such a big piece to what this team has been doing, not only during this winning streak, but throughout the season. His defense just elevates everyone else's. Everyone else picks up the intensity defensively. So it was good to see that Asar was able to walk on his own willpower, go to the bench, and you could kind of see him walking post game when FanDuel was doing their post game show. Saw him walking in the background. Looked completely fine. So that's a very good sign if you guys were worried about Asar Thompson and that scary injury that he did have in the fourth quarter. But this marks 8 straight wins, you guys. Most since the 2008 season. That was the Golden Work Pistons, the tail end of the Golden Work Pistons, with the final score of 117-97, held the Celtics to under 100 points, held the Clippers to under 100 points. Ever since we let the Hawks drop 140, the defensive intensity these past 2 games has been excellent. This team is at an all-time high right now. I thought in the month of December, when they were able to play 500 basketball, I was pleased with it. I thought the month of January, they showed more progression. This month, like JB said it in his introductory press conference, he said by February, March, you should be able to turn on the TV and say that's Detroit Pistons basketball. And the man delivered on his word. 8 straight wins. The defense at times is just so locked down. I think there are some tweaks that the watch film and get better at. This coaching staff has shown the ability to watch film and adjust mid-season, which I love. But I'm at an all-time high right now, you guys. I don't know how you're feeling as just Pistons fans, but watching this team, supporting this team. I like to consider myself a diehard Piston fan. I watch every game. I watched every game during the 14-win season. I watched every game during the 17-win season. Every game during the Charlie V years, the Will Bynum years. I mean, I grew up on the Grant Hill era, so um, this team just has me smiling. Like this is such a good basketball team, and like I feel like they're not even scratching the surface of what they could be. I think they could easily be a team that scratches 45 wins this season, just the way they're playing basketball right now. But I want to open up the show for questions and comments. See, we have over 34 comments in the live chat on YouTube right now. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And then after we do come back, we're going to answer, all of your questions, all of your comments, and wrap this podcast up. We will be right back, you guys. Okay, you're back. We're back, you guys. I have to address something because everybody thinks when I take a commercial break, I'm smoking weed. You guys, I have not smoked weed since high school. I'm just going through the live chat and looking at these comments and questions that I want to talk about for the remainder of the podcast. I promise you, there's no weed, there's no alcohol. Pretty sober over here. um, yeah, I have not smoked weed since high school. The last time I did, I got quote unquote mellow yellow. Shout out to Cade. I get really mellow when I smoke weed, and I'm a pretty laid back person in general. I get even more laid back when I smoke or even do edibles. So I can't do that. But let's get into this post game podcast Q&A part. So I want to get into Alec Jasper's comment, and it says Holland, Asar, Isaiah Stewart, Duran are absolute menaces to society. This team, this is a team of destiny. Show me my opponent. Love the energy, Alex. I mean, you just named off a lot of foundation core pieces. Ron Holland has shown so many flashes this year. He's gotten so much better since the summer league. Asar Thompson, I think you could argue best perimeter defender in the league. Like just the way he can take on opposing offensive players, like top tier offensive talents like a Jason Tatum, James Harden this week. Like he takes the challenge of taking on the best offensive player night in and night out. Isaiah Stewart, for the role that he's in, being a backup center off the bench, the way he's able to move laterally. Like if you guys want to watch Isaiah Stewart, like watch how quick he can move on his feet and how he can switch defensively. I think it's very underrated, or underrated part of his game. And Jalen Duren, I think you have to give him his flowers as well. Like he's really stepped up his game over the last month, 2 months. And we talked about X factors on this team, like Asar and Duren being able to be on the court together was something that a lot of people had questions, myself included. I wasn't really sure if they could both play together because they're not perimeter shooters. But I think what the Pistons have done is put Asar more on primary ball handling duties, and it's really opened up the offense for not only him but his teammates around him. But you just look at this, core of defensive, tough-minded guys, and I'm with you, Alex. Like they can basically beat anyone night in and night out. They're showing that right now. They're one of the hottest teams in the NBA. Not just, in the Eastern Conference, in the NBA. They're one of the hottest teams since All-Star break. So you got to give them that respect. I have a comment from Cruza. A statement made a statement was made by the Pistons and the entire NBA tonight. I agree. I think a lot of people were looking at the Celtics, coming in and being favorites. They were actually 5-point favorites. If you guys do bet, I saw the line on FanDuel and on DraftKings. They were a 5-point favorite, and out of halftime, the Pistons were 5-point favorites. So, you're beating a team. Obviously, they're banged up. They're missing their second best player. Pistons are missing Ivy, Fontecchio, and Schroeder. So they were without key pieces as well tonight, and they still found a way to win and score over 117 points and keep the Celtics under 100, which is very hard to do because they're a high octane offensive team. And just the way that they play, like they hoist and make a lot of threes. But yeah, I think a lot of people are gonna, if they're not already, start talking about the Detroit Pistons on more of a national scale, and they deserve it. Podcasts like myself, I talk about the Pistons 365, 7 days a week. I love it. But players like Cade, young core guys, like they deserve to be talked about on a national scale. Little guys like us that come up here and do these post game shows. We do it for the love of our team, do it for the love of just being diehard fans. But really happy for the Pistons to not only beat the Celtics but extend that win streak. Like put people on notice, put the NBA on notice, put shows on notice that this isn't a fluky team. You just beat one of the powerhouses in the Eastern Conference. I have a comment from the original kid. The question is no longer can the Pistons make the playoffs? It's how far into the postseason can they go? That's a great question, and I agree with you. I think in the beginning of the season, you guys that listen to these post game podcasts, I always said, the goal for this season should be at least the play-in tournament. Try to at least be a top 10 seed in the Eastern Conference. And as of late, as they've gotten better over the past month and a half, it's now how high can you get in the Eastern Conference standings? They were at the 7 seed. They're like, can we get the 6 seed? Now we're having conversations. Can they get the 4 seed? Can they, jump past the New York Knicks and give them a challenge for the 4 seed? Get a home court advantage in the playoffs. I mean, those are the conversations that we're probably going to have over the, next 23 games or so. And to answer your question, the way that they're playing right now, I think they could give a lot of teams trouble. Currently, I think they're the 6 seed. They might be tied for the 5 seed. A 4-5 matchup. I would love to see it. It'll be really interesting to see how far they can go and how much separation they can put themselves from the teams like the 7, the 6, and jump up to the 5, even the 4 seed to kind of catch ground there. But I definitely think they could go far in the playoffs. Just the way that they're playing right now. You look at any statistical category right now, they're top 5 in net rating, top 3 in offense, top 5 in defense. Like just the way that they're playing right now, it's elite basketball. It's basketball that we haven't seen around these parts in the later part of 20 years. Like we haven't seen basketball this good in quite some time since the Going to Work crew, since Chauncey and Tayshaun and Ben and Rip and She. Like we haven't seen a team be in top 5 in offense and defense. Like we just haven't. It's honestly so great to see if you are a Detroit Piston fan. I have a comment from Jay Hart, and he said, for the playoffs, we have to bring the horn and Detroit basketball chant back after every made 3. We haven't heard it since the Palace. By the way, Bees might have snatched the 6th man of the year from Pritchard. I did hear, now I don't know if this will upset some people. I did hear the Ben Wallace gong last week on TV when Isaiah Stewart blocked the shot. So the Pistons have it. They have those sound effects. I do agree with you. I'd love to hear John Mason scream Detroit basketball a little bit more. Kind of like bring that nostalgia, bring back those vibes from the Palace days, because just the way that this team's playing right now, it's so fun to watch. And to your comment about Malik Beasley possibly snatching six man of the year from Peyton Pritchard, you just hit six threes against the guy that is like the lead on favorite by a lot of media members and even these sports books. Like, I've had conversations like, think about this. JB Bickerstaff is in conversations for coach of the year. Malik Beasley's in conversations for six man of the year. Trajan Langdon's in conversations for executive of the year. Cade Cunningham's in conversations for all NBA. When's the last time we could say that we've had a coach, multiple players, and an executive be in awards? It's been a long time. It's probably been like since like the Joe Dumars days. Like this team is headed in the right direction. The sky's the limit. I'm really excited for this offseason just to see what happens and how they go, because I think the way they're playing right now, it's just, you should be so excited if you're a Piston fan. And to answer Piston Sicko's question, how hype are you about this team? Extremely hype. Extremely hype. I didn't expect them to be playing this high level of basketball so soon under JB Bickerstaff. I just didn't. I thought that they would at least compete and be better. I didn't expect them to be on the cusp of winning 45 games, because I think the conversation that a lot of us had was, can this team win 30 games this year? Can they, try to get the 30 wins? Well, they did that. Can they get the 40? I think that's the next conversation. Can they get the 45? I think those are the conversations that you're going to see a lot of other Pistons podcasts talk about, of like, can this team get the 45 wins? Can they be a top four seed in the Eastern Conference? I'm extremely hype. I haven't been this hype about a basketball team probably since the Go in the Work era, when I was like in sixth grade when they won a championship. Like, I have not been this hype in quite some time. Ari Rotman said he's getting himself a number 5 jersey. Shout out to Malik Beasley, man. That's awesome. I love to hear stuff like that. Mr. My City, the Pistons will headline First Take tomorrow. I hope so. I hope it's not for just a segment or two. Like, they should start talking more positively about this team. I've turned on ESPN First Take and Get Up recently, and all I hear is JJ Redick should be the candidate for coach of the year, the job he's doing. That's all I hear. And that's all you're going to hear on those shows. You're going to hear Laker talk 24/7, Mavericks talk because of the Luka trade. I hope these guys get talked about on a national scale. I think the national media is going to be forced to talk about the Detroit Pistons because they're winning so many games and they're the hottest team in basketball right now. And I love it. Red Baron has a question. Why do some local radio personalities shit on the NBA or the Pistons? I really want to call in and pick a fight. So I did hear this conversation today. So for you guys that weren't aware, 97.1 basically said if the Pistons didn't beat the Celtics tonight, then this season is meaningless. And like, when I hear stuff like that, I'm just kind of like, you guys don't really watch basketball. And I don't go for basketball analysis to 97.1, if I'm being honest. I just don't. They're good for Lions talk and football talk. Like, I'll give them that respect. But when it comes to basketball or other sports like hockey and baseball, like, that's not my go-to listen if I want to listen to sports that I like and I'm passionate about. I don't know why they do it. I really don't. Maybe to get ratings, maybe to get people to call in, and you kind of have to look at the fan base that they have. A lot of those guys that call into the show think that these guys are singing the gospel. Like 97.1's audience is, no disrespect, but it's a lot of older listeners and viewers. Like they're not on here listening to me. I can guarantee you that. Those were the same guys that wanted to trade Kate Cunningham. Those are the same guys that said that Kate Cunningham wouldn't start on the Boston Celtics. Those are the same guys that wanted to trade for Ben Simmons. Those are the same guys that called for tanking. And um, now that when the Pistons were rebuilding and tanking, they say, why are they wasting our time? They're not even worth watching. So you kind of have to keep receipts on those local radio stations because it gets to a point where it's just like I don't even think these guys watch the NBA or basketball for that matter, right, Baron? I don't know why they do it though. It's kind of frustrating. I have a comment from Truthella. Haven't seen you in a while, man. Hope you're doing well. Do you think Ivy makes it back for the playoff push? Appreciate the question. I know I talked with Eric Vincent about this on last podcast, last weekend on Saturday. If you do the math, Ivy was injured in January. I think a timetable for him would be very late April, early May. So the Pistons would have to win a playoff series. And then Ivy would probably be on a minute restriction. I think that's what I would look at, Trutella. I don't really know if the Pistons are really pushing for Ivy to come back. They may just want him to rehab and take care of his body and come back stronger for next season. But he is out of a walking boot. We should get an update on Ivy in another 2 weeks of how his rehab and progression is going. So we'll probably get a better understanding of what to expect. And maybe we could possibly see him. But I mean, if you just want to look at the timetables and how long a broken fibula does take to rehab and heal, around late April, early May would be my earliest estimation if they want to have Jaden Ivey back for the playoffs. But that's just my opinion. I'm not a medical doctor. Don't take my word seriously. Like he could come back first week in April. Who knows? Who knows? Everyone heals differently. Nate Myers, I'll say it again. JB Bickerstaff, coach of the year, considering where the franchise was last year to now crazy turnaround. Yeah, I've talked about it multiple times. I think he should be in the conversation. I just saw in a sports book 2 weeks ago, he was top 3 odds. Now he's top 2 odds, right behind Kenny Atkinson. I think if the Pistons are a 4 seed, it's his award. It just is. You were a 14-win basketball team, and you're on pace to win 44, 45 games right now. Like if you get to the 4 seed, you have over 40 wins, a 30-game improvement. You can't tell me he's not coach of the year. What he's instilled, what he's brought culturally. The Pistons have an identity now. And they haven't had an identity in years. I agree with you. JB Bickerstaff should be the coach of the year. Who's the best point guard in the league? I think Kate Cunningham definitely is in that conversation. You got guys like SGA, you got guys like Kate Cunningham. You still have to give Steph Curry his respect, even in his 30s. Dame's still up there. I think you could have a conversation right now between Cade and Shea, and I think it's really close. I think if Cade had Shea's whistle, he'd be better. I think if Cade had Shea's whistle, he'd probably average 30 or 35, in my opinion. He's starting to get more respect, but you could definitely say Cade Cunningham is one of, if not the best, points in the NBA. He's up there with Luka. He's in the conversation with Luka Doncic as well. Like you could definitely have debates. For me, I would say Cade is definitely in my top 5. And I'll probably think about this. I'll probably sleep on it. Who my top 5 are currently, just off the top of my head. I'm just thinking of other point guards around the league. But I think you talk about Shea, you talk about Cade, you talk about Luka. Those are the guys that I think a lot of us look at as the best point guards in the NBA. Mr. My City, I hate hearing the COVID pre-recorded defense chant. Yeah, me too. I talked about that with Zarek the other day, or not the other day, like maybe a month ago. Like, why do they still like chant the pre-COVID defense chants? I think you're getting enough fans, Mr. My City, in the building where for the first time I heard "Let's go Pistons," and I haven't heard that in a long time. Like, there are actually fans cheering "Let's go Pistons." That place sounded electric. I honestly think that just the way that they're playing basketball right now, um, it's so good for the city. It's so good for Detroit sports, and when you have a winning product on the floor, fans show out. Like that place looked packed on a Wednesday night, and I love it. You got the Nuggets on Friday, and then that's the end of the week. So I think LCA should be packed for the rest of the week. We have a comment from Janix. He said, "I'm 15 and I have been through what I call the dumpster fire all my life, but this team is making me get emotional. I'm waking up my neighbors." I love it, man. Like, yeah, you really haven't experienced anything like good. Like this is like the team. It always makes me like wonder with Piston fans, like when you started watching, like in your case, you're 15, so you didn't get to witness the 2004 Pistons or even before that, like the Grant Hill era, like I got to witness. So this is a team that you'll probably remember if they go far in the playoffs and, during JB Bickerstaff's tenure, like this will be a team that you'll probably have a lot of memories with. And I think that is so cool. Um, it kind of made me laugh that you're waking up your neighbors. Who knows what you're doing, but man, like I love it. I love it. Jamal Scott has a comment. A lot of people don't understand how good Ron Holland is going to be. Yeah, they don't. They don't. I don't think people um honestly understand the tools that this kid has. The jump shot, I think, has improved quite a bit. Defensively, I think he has a little bit of work to do, but he has all the tools to, I think, be a good defender. Transition, he's a nightmare. Once he learns to control his speed and his pace and finish around the basket, he's just going to be such a hard player to guard. But honestly, it's really exciting to just kind of see his development this year. Because I know a lot of Pistons fans were very vocal about that pick. They were not happy with Ron Holland. I remember they wanted Cody Williams, they wanted Dalton Connect. Like a lot of people did not like the Ron Holland pick. They really didn't. Want to get to a couple more comments and questions, with you guys about this Pistons victory tonight. Again, Pistons beat the Celtics. They extend their winning streak to 8 in a row. 117-97 was the final score. Uh, but man, like what a win tonight. The whole point is Hutchinson has been recovering for 5 months. Ivy got hurt with the same injury due to math. Okay, so I want to kind of address this. Hutchinson actually had two injuries where Ivy just had one. Hutchinson broke his fibia and tibia. Ivy just broke his tibia. So I think if you did do the math case correct, he could be back like around late April, early May. I think for the playoffs because I know Trutella asked about like could Ivy be back for the playoffs. I think he honestly could. I really do. Um, but overall, it's going to be really really fun. Ooh, this is a great question. This comes from Wiz Blue. Who wins a series between this year's team or the 2016 team we had? I would say this team wins because I think they have a better bench. I think the one thing with the 2016 team from my memory is the starting five was okay, but they really didn't have a good second unit. They didn't really have a backup point guard. I think you have shooters like Beasley and Schroeder off your bench. And even though Simone Fontecchio has struggled this year, he's a shooter. You have guys like Paul Reed as a third string center off your bench. I think the 2024-2025 Pistons would lose in a 7-game series. I just think this team is deeper from the starting lineup. I mean, you could talk like Cade Cunningham versus Reggie Jackson. That's a mismatch. You got Jaden Ivey when he's healthy against KCP. That's probably a mismatch. Now, you had Marcus Morris as your small forward and Tobias Harris as your power forward. So Asar would probably lock up Marcus Morris. Tobias on Tobias would actually kind of be funny. And you have Andre Drummond and Jalen Duren. Like that would be like a good, matchup. But I think this team would probably um win. Like the 2025 Pistons would easily beat the 2015-16 Pistons. But I am probably going to wrap this podcast up, you guys. I appreciate all 215 of you guys watching live on YouTube right now. So if you could, on your way out, hit the like button. It does really help the YouTube channel, push out more Detroit Pistons content to fans just like you that are watching live on YouTube. But I will see you guys immediately after the Detroit Pistons versus the Denver Nuggets game. We'll do a post-game show with that. Tomorrow, actually, before we do sign off, we're going to be joined by Natalie Kerwin. We're having a Thursday podcast. That'll be live tomorrow at 7 p.m. We're going to be joined by her talking about the Pistons and everything else. And should be a really, fun episode. But again, really appreciate you guys. Until next time, go Pistons. Peace.